Good evening and welcome to the Grand Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, September 24th, 2018. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well, thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country, and to alumni of our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. We will get our meeting started. You may notice around the table we're missing a couple council members. We're headed off this week to our annual Alberta Urban Municipalities Association convention, and a couple of council members found the opportunity to go and take advantage of some of the pre-convention education sessions on municipal finance, community engagement, and strategic planning. And so we are shorthanded a little bit, but we do have at least two council members who are able to call in tonight. They submitted the required request under our procedure bylaw, so they'll be able to participate in our unfinished business, and that's the third reading for bylaw C 1260-92. I believe we'll have Councillor Bressie and Councillor Thiessen on for that specific agenda item. But having said that, I would ask for a motion to adopt the set of previous council meeting minutes. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'd recommend a motion that council approve the minutes of the City Council meeting held September 10th, 2018 as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Plott. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? I don't see anybody with their hands up or ringing in, so I will call for the vote to adopt those minutes. Please vote. Okay, has everybody's vote registered? I need to do my math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. If you're in attendance, I believe you need to vote. It's only on a public hearing where you're not able to vote. So you can vote on the business. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, now I'll do my math again. 6. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you. That motion carries. Don't confuse your mayor with math. We'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. And I see Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the agenda as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on the agenda as presented? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. It's an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward and address council on any community-related matter. You don't need to call in ahead of time, but we always appreciate it if you do. And anybody that wishes to come forward, it cannot be the subject of a public hearing. And I don't believe we have any public hearings this evening. So is there anybody that wishes to come forward and address council on any community-related matter? There were a couple of delegations that let us know ahead of time, one with respect to a proclamation, and Ms. Grace Murray with respect to vulnerable residents. Are either of those two delegations in attendance this evening? Seeing none, nobody coming forward, I'll ask one last time if there's anybody that wishes to address council. Seeing none, then I'll close the delegation portion of our agenda. Our two that had called ahead of time, looks like they were not able to be here this evening, and so we'll take care of that business at a future council meeting. And we can move on. We don't have any public hearings this evening, but we do have some unfinished business related to a public hearing and bylaw C 1260-92. This is what our two call-in councillors wanted to participate in, and I just want to confirm that we have Councillors Thiessen and Bressie on the line. Do we have both of you gentlemen there?
Yes, I am here, Councillor Thiessen.
Councillor Thiessen and Councillor Bressie?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. So I will look to administration for a brief introduction. I believe there may have been some information that was requested by council, and then we will move on to business arising and third hearing or any other related motions. So Mr. DeRoche, you said that there was some information requested by council.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, there was just a bit of information and points of clarification requested at the previous meeting. The first is what can be contained in a development permit. So restrictions on hours of operation, the appearance of the site, as well as the type of goods that can be stored at the facility can be terms of the development permit. In terms of hours of operation, the applicant has indicated that they are seeking something like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. However, the exact hours will be determined during the development permit process if this is approved. The development permit is also the best method of enforcing site standards at this time. The development requires a number of inspections to be given an occupancy permit so that they can operate. We also take landscaping and paving securities. So those are funds that we hold until the work is completed. And also there is a two-year maintenance period required, at which the end of which there will be an additional inspection. As the development ages, however, the unsightly premises bylaw will be the method for enforcement. I also received a request for information regarding traffic on 92nd Street. So the daily traffic counts for northbound traffic were around 7,800, and for southbound traffic, it was around 6,000. I requested an analysis from our engineering department, and the information they gave me is that there are no reliable estimates for the trip generation of an RV storage facility. However, it is so minor that it would be insignificant to their calculations, and there's just not a lot of data available on it. For a storage facility of the proposed size, there would be approximately 4.5 trips per hour at peak hour. And based on a road like 92nd Street, that is also insignificant in terms of traffic implications. There was an additional question about adjusting the site plan in terms of putting the landscaping on the other side of the fence. It is possible to make these adjustments based on the way that the bylaw is written. However, the applicant is not interested in relocating the fence. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. DeRoche. So questions asked at our last council meeting and I think answered by management. Thanks very much, Mr. DeRoche, for finding that information. So I would look for any business arising, either amendments to third reading or third reading itself. I'll look first in the council chambers and I will ask if there's anything from our two gentlemen on the phone.
Thank you, Mayor Given. This is Councillor Bressie.
Go ahead, Councillor Bressie.
I would like to make a motion to this. It's a motion that, because it's kind of wordy, I did email to our recording secretary beforehand, and that is, I'd move that we add the following to section 104.4.13.5, and that is H. Any development permit issued for commercial storage in this district shall include limits for hours of customer access, requirements for the shipping containers to be of a uniform appearance, including height and color, and restrictions on the type of goods that may be stored at the facility. Just to speak to this a little bit, I am supportive of the changes to the site that are proposed. I think it will be a better looking and a better neighbor to the residents that are nearby. That being said, I'm supportive of it because there's a few promises that the owner has made in response to concerns raised by residents. And I want to capture those promises in a mechanism for making sure they materialize in the bylaw itself. So that's why I'm making this motion.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. I'll just confirm with Ms. Williams that you have the exact text that Councillor Bressie was referring to. Okay, Ms. Williams says that she has, and so Council, everybody's clear with the intent. It essentially adds that point H, which specifies that the development permit will include, specifically address those factors that Councillor Bressie raised. Is everyone clear with the intent of Councillor Bressie's amendment? Okay, so we'll take that as a motion in order and open for discussion debate. Councillor Clayton.
A question for administration. Based on the amendment to the current motion, if there's deviations from these amendments, would they still fall under the Unsightly Premises Act, or what's the the measurement for, or the repercussions for not following specific amendments. I guess in particular, when we talk about uniformity standards, if in regards to color, if it's two shades, everything's gray, but there's slightly different shades of gray, it's still considered a uniform color. Tell me, how your interpretation of these amendments would be.
Mr. DeRoche?
Thank you, through the mayor. So the initial method for enforcement would still be through the development permit. Now, the wording to be included in the bylaw is deliberately vague so as to allow the development officer to use their discretion when writing the development permit, and that might involve some negotiations with the applicant, but they can be more specific on the exact details.
Okay. And just to be clear, Councillor Clayton, I think I heard you ask what would be the remedy should those requirements not be complied with. And so, Mr. Drosch, should any of the requirements of the development permit not be complied with, what would management's remedy be?
Thank you, through the mayor. So essentially, it would be through the permitting department, and they would issue a stop order, and so that would prevent the business from operating legally.
So ultimately, those conditions, there's a pretty significant hammer, I guess, that management has should they find that there's non-compliance with them. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. My question, I guess, is for administration as well. I'm just wondering on the hours, or if we're trying to be prescriptive on the hours, how that would look if the applicant decided later on that he wanted to extend or change hours. I guess my thinking on this is that, if I'm somebody that's renting space from there, is 8 to 6 really accessible time for me if I want to get there before work or potentially after work? I'm seeing more like maybe a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. being maybe the appropriate fit, but I'm not sure how we would protect ourselves in that if we just leave it open-ended like this.
Mr. Drosch?
How would the hours normally work on this scenario, I guess?
Through the mayor, so that would be a more difficult clause to enforce. It is still possible. However, it would rely on reports from residents who are concerned about the item. Also, as you mentioned, the hours that the applicant initially indicated are not quite what you would expect from a similar facility. And so they will likely change as he works with the development officer who has more experience with this type of development and can advise him on what are appropriate hours, given that people who use storage facilities for residential uses tend to need access in the evening. And so the hours will likely be determined through the development permit process. In terms of enforcing them, it's slightly more challenging if they decide they want to change them down the road. Technically, they would require a new development permit or a change to their development permit, but it is not something I've dealt with personally.
And just for clarification, I can't remember from last because a couple weeks on this was here. Is this going to be a system where it's an open gate, or is it going to be a fob system where you have to scan in, scan out, and the gate will lock and unlock as people come to get access to their containers?
Mr. Drosch, do you have that information?
I don't have that answer.
Thanks, Mr. Drosch. Any other discussion or debate on Councillor Bressy's motion to amend the terms of the change to bylaw C-1260? Seeing none, then we will vote on Councillor Bressy's amendment. I'll first go with the council members that are here in the room. We'll vote using our voting stations. And then before I display the result, I'll invite each of the councillors on the phone to vote verbally. And then we'll display the results. And I should note that Councillor Friesen was not in attendance at the last, at the public hearing section of this land use bylaw amendment, and so she is not able to vote on the third reading. So I will call for the vote on Councillor Bressy's proposed amendment. Please vote. That's all 5 in the room. First, I'll ask Councillor Bressy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Thiessen, how do you vote?
In favor.
Okay, thanks very much, gentlemen. So I'll display the results. And so that is a unanimous vote. And so we can move on to third reading as amended. Can I have a motion for third reading as amended? Thanks, Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Will Given. I move the council move the council give the third reading to bylaw C 1260-92, being an amended land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. So that motion is open for discussion and debate. I'll look first in the room. Is there anybody who wishes to key in for discussion and debate on third reading as amended? Seeing none, then I'll ask our two gentlemen on the phone. I'll start opposite this time. Councillor Thiessen, do you have any discussion or debate on third reading?
Just a question, if it's possible, Bill.
Sure, absolutely.
This is a question for administration in regards to the landscaping. Now, when this zoning was changed back in 2015, it was a commercial designation, and under the DC 13 district, which had a stipulation that certain trees and shrubs had to be planted, and those weren't planted. My question is just in regards to the site, if the trees are just going to stay up where the developer wants them to be anyways, what is our recourse to ensure that the trees are planted in line with the site plan that's been presented in the bylaw? I really like, just a comment, I really like that administration has put forward as part of G that all the landscaping and screening requirements must be met in the first phase. But just to ensure that the site is properly shielded, I wanted to ensure that there was no underwater pipes or electrical wires underneath that would prohibit the planting as to the site plan. Is there any site constraints that we should be aware of before voting on this?
So I just want to clarify, I think I heard two questions, Councillor Thiessen, before I refer that to administration. First, I think I heard you ask what remedies would be available to the city if the landscaping didn't materialize the way it was proposed. And then secondly, I think I heard you ask about any site constraints that might prevent the landscaping. Did you intend there to be two questions there?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. DeRoche, are you able to answer both of those?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in response to Councillor Thiessen's comments about the original development permit for the site, regrettably, there seems to have been some sort of mistake when that was implemented. So the initial development permit stipulated that the landscaping was required once the engineering project on 92nd Street was complete, which was likely several years later. And so it is most likely that due to changes in staff or just a lack of monitoring that those clauses weren't enforced after the engineering project was actually complete. Through this process, they will be providing security, so there will be funds held by the city to ensure that that landscaping is done, and we have increased our securities since then. We did review the utility lines on the site, and so the only thing near the area where the trees are proposed is overhead power lines, but it appears that they are far enough away from the proposed location. The item was also circulated to the utility companies, and we did not receive any comments regarding the location of the proposed landscaping. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. DeRoche. Councillor Thiessen, anything further?
No, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Bressie, any comments or debate?
Nope.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. I'll look one last time to council in the room. Any further comments, questions, or debate on third reading? Seeing none, then we'll follow that same process. I'll first take the vote of council members in the room, and then we'll do the two council members on the phone verbally. Council members in the room, please vote. Thank you. And Councillor Thiessen, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Bressie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously, and I believe that that concludes all of our business with item 7.1 and bylaw C 1260-92. That was the item that both council members had indicated that they were calling in for. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Enjoy the education sessions, and we'll see you at AUMA in Red Deer.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So we'll move on to item 7.2, appointment of Deputy Mayor, October 1st to October 22nd, 2018. I'll speak really briefly to this. Typically at Council's organizational meeting, we set the deputy mayor appointment for the entire calendar year up until the next organizational meeting, and this short period of time was missed, an oversight, as we said it last year. My recommendation would be to appoint Councillor Bressie for this period. My intention would be to rotate the schedule, and Councillor Bressie would start for next year. He would be the first person in the rotation next year, so it just makes sense to add this little bit of extra time to Councillor Bressie's rotation. So that would be my recommendation. If I could ask for a council member that would be willing to make that motion, I would appreciate it. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. I would move that Council appoint Councillor Bressie to serve as Deputy Mayor from October 1st to 22nd, 2018.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Any discussion or debate on the motion? I don't see anybody ringing in, and just, you know, to let council in on the secret, we'll rotate it up so that everybody gets an opportunity to serve as deputy mayor during a different time of year, so nobody gets stuck doing it over summer holidays or Christmas holidays or anything like that. But we'll see that at our organizational meeting coming up in October. So I don't see anybody else ringing in for discussion or debate, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We have no reports this evening, and so that'll take us to item 9.1, our committee business, and we'll start off with the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting. Councillor Minhas, I think you're going to step in and do those ones for us.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I move the council receive the minute of Cooperative Service Committee meeting held on Tuesday, September 11, 2018 as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? And are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct before we adopt them? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. And thanks, Councillor Minhas, for stepping in for Councillor O'Toole and taking that set of minutes. That motion carries, and we'll move on to item 9.2, the Pursuit of Excellence Committee meeting. And Councillor Clayton, I think you're stepping in to handle that set of minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Given, I would move that Council receive the minutes of the Pursuit of Excellence Committee meeting held Wednesday, September 12th, as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton, anything you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes?
Sure, just a couple things. Committee had probably about less than a dozen applications. There was funding approved for various different activities, including freestyle skiing and cross-country skiing, as well as canoe polo. And as well, there was a discussion in regards to bringing back some marketing options for a new brochure, just to sort of create awareness about the opportunities out there with Pursuit of Excellence and how people can apply and what they can and can't qualify for, and so that's expected to come back in the next couple of meetings.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. And Councillor Clayton, I think you're, I think it's the Councillor Clayton show with item 9.3 in the Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would move that Council receive the minutes of the Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, September 18th, as presented.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Sorry, I'm going to move to 9.3.1. Next, I would move that Council approve the terms of reference for the Economic Development Advisory and Strategic Planning Committee.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on the recommendation? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move the Council allocate $60,000 from the Transportation System Levy Reserve to fund the installation of the final set of traffic signal lights on the west leg of the intersection of 84th Ave and 116th Street. Speaking to that motion, this is money that's coming out of reserve, so there's no additional implications in regards to taxes, etc. And this is the last set of lights at an intersection that was planned to have lights, and it just truly completes a project. And coming out of the reserve, there's no financial implications at this point. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Any other discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. That motion carries. Anything else you wanted to highlight from that set of minutes, Councillor?
Sure, just a couple things. There was a request for letter of concurrence in regards to a telecommunication tower on land of out near the Airport Industrial Park. As well, there was a presentation on crime trends from Superintendent McKenna, and it was a very thorough report. There was some very useful information there in regards to crime trends, as well as where we're seeing concerns and where the needs are, as well as where we're making some gains in regards to preventing and reducing crimes. So it was a very thorough report, and I ask anybody who is looking for more information maybe to check with someone on the committee, because there was great information there. As well, we had a downtown rehabilitation project update, and the brickwork at that point, which is over a week ago now, was 50% completed on the West Block and going north. And there's another coffee construction session being held September 27th at Laurels. And lastly, we had an update from our Director Grande, in regards to various things, including construction and enforcement services, crime prevention. So there was a very thorough update on that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. I think that handles all of our committee business. I don't think we had any correspondence this evening. I don't think we had any delegations, so we obviously didn't have any delegations. We have no notices of motion. I asked, and nobody had any council member reports from external agencies, boards, and commission. We were on such a roll. Councillor Clayton's just rang in. Councillor Clayton.
Just a really brief update. Myself and Councillor Min has attended the last Grande Prairie Airport meeting, and one of the things that stuck out to me from that meeting was the increase in traffic in regards to our airport in July in particular. It is the substantial amount of increase, but the interesting point, in my opinion, was that it's not in the traditional trend of when airports see traffic improve or increasing. So the fall schedule is currently being or has been released, and the airport authority is working with the two major airlines to talk about what this increase in business potentially could mean for some other potential scheduling, whether it's bringing in of larger planes. Potentially, the discussion could lead to additional flights, but at this point, it was a very positive sort of indicator of what's happening at our local airport and as well in our region. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's good news. Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. I was going to provide just a really brief update about the AUMA for council members that are attending. Obviously, our conference is in Red Deer. This is the first time in my time on council it's been held outside of either Edmonton or Calgary. The City of Red Deer has done a significant amount of work over a number of years to get ready and get organized for this. And by all accounts so far, at the AUMA board level, the information we're receiving is that it's going to be well attended. They were targeting about 1,100 attendees, and last I heard they were up over 1,150. So they're outpacing their attendance that they're hoping to get, and so it sounds like it should be a good conference. A number of interesting resolutions, and council, check the most recent information. There were a couple of extraordinary resolutions that were approved by the board to go to the convention floor just this last week at our board meeting. But other than that, in terms of AUMA, look forward to seeing everybody down in Red Deer, and that would be my AUMA report. We'll start council member roundtable, and we'll start with Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I did attend a few things, and I'm sure that others will mention some of them, but I know that that I was the only councillor that went to the Highland Park Pollinator Hotel unveiling, so I thought I would highlight that. The Community Association at Highland Park is very active and very interested in environmental improvements in the area. And so when we were at Elvira Gotkowski Park, I saw there the fruit trees that they had planted over the past year, and heard that they had a great harvest from that. They're working on some other plans for more improvements in the spring. But this pollinator hotel is kind of an interesting thing. These are places for independent bees as opposed to those that swarm in a hive, and other pollinating insects to lay their eggs to live over the winter. They created a very nice piece that's set in the ground, very permanent looking, and they've got one side of it set up, and they hope to get the other side set up in the spring. Just a really neat event, and at the same time, they also had a barbecue because their plans for a barbecue earlier in the year had been rained out. So instead, we had it in near zero weather, which was a little unfortunate, but all things being equal, it was fairly well attended. And they ran a bicycle parade, and a bunch of youngsters from the neighborhood paraded their decorated bicycles. So it was kind of fun. And they're all very proud of what they've accomplished as an association. I'll conclude there.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. After our last council meeting the next day, my wife and I went to Italy, just got back on Saturday afternoon, so it was a trip away. But on the trip away, we tried, I think, every mode of transportation. We took buses, trains, Uber, cabs, boats, so it was neat to see how they move people around in Italy. Getting back to Canada, which was great to get back to all the time. You take for granted some things that you don't notice every day. The abundance of MR that we have in our communities is landing in Calgary and then in Toronto and then coming back to Grande Prairie and driving around. Just the amount of abundance of MR that we have is really noticeable. I'm also seeing municipal facilities. I didn't see a single municipal facility when I was there in 10 days. And the appreciation of toilet seats again. So that was it's good to be back in Canada. So.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Palat. Councillor Friesen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I've been quite busy the last couple of weeks with fall. Everything's back in full swing. So I've been at a number of fundraisers for some of our nonprofits, including Victim Services, one for, the Legion Harvest Tea I was at as well. Odyssey House sponsor recognition evening, and they had a great silent auction and a few other events there. So folks are back and hard at it. What I did notice, though, that I wanted to comment on at these events is how excited people are and generous they're being. I think that we are known as a very generous community. I was speaking with some individuals who had been to a fundraiser golf tournament outside of our community, and they couldn't believe that things were going for less than the value of the item. And here in Grande Prairie, so in other places you go to these auctions to get a good deal on something. Here in Grande Prairie, it's really clear that our residents go to these sorts of events to truly support the organizations that are holding them. So, and I think it also just speaks to the excitement and the optimism for our economy. So that was the highlight of my couple of weeks. Thank you.
Much, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Minhas.
First one, United Way campaign kickoff, luncheon, and that was pretty good. It was, I think, maybe over 120 more peoples. And Jason Swaski, he's going to be the chair for fundraising. And it was very interesting there. Lots of people went there, and it was in the paradise. And then I went to small business breakfast kickoff for the 18 October to 24th at the small business day thing there. And there was over 100 people again. And it was very interesting talking to people, and people were excited to do those things. And then Helen's retirement party, that was more fun, talking to Helen and going away. She's been forever councillor in downtown, 17 years. She's done a lot of great stuff for Grande Prairie to bring into the map. Lots, AUMA president, all the stuff she's done good for our city. And then the airport meeting, already Jackie mentioned that. Then I went to school, St. John Paul School grand opening, and our mayor did very good speech there. and lots of other people were there too. So that was my last 2 weeks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll just touch on a couple things that weren't already touched upon. I attended the Odyssey Sunrise House Golf Tournament fundraiser. I have to say that it wasn't snowing, but it was +2 and pretty darn close. And however, as with most events, as Councillor Friesen attested to, great support from the community. Special thanks to all the volunteers who stuck with it to make sure that this event continued and raised significant funds for such two great organizations. Also on September 16th, attended with Councillor Thiessen, Mayor Given, and possibly one other person. Okay, I know Councillor Blackburn was there as well. Attended the Terry Fox run, and that day it was slightly warmer but raining, so it was +5 and raining, so it wasn't much warmer. But great participation considering the cold weather, and I haven't heard the numbers that were raised, but from my understanding, there was great support in the community. September 19th to 21st, myself and Councillor Bressley attended a Municipal Innovators Conference, and it was a great conference, lots of great discussions on ways that municipalities and Calgary and other presenting municipalities are doing things differently. There was a really good conversation in the room. We early discovered we were probably the only 2 elected officials there, so when they referred to creatures out walking the streets at the night, they meant animals, and somebody yelled politicians as well. So we kept our hands down and kept our heads low, but we learned some great things, and it was I thought it was a very worthwhile conference. And then on September 21st, attended the Grand Prairie Storm home opener at Revolution Place. There was a great amount of activity going on that night. Brand Tractor sponsored a motocross demonstration. That was really cool. And there was also a concert going on that night. So it was a really busy night at the facility and a really good vibe in there. That night, the Storm actually won. I didn't hear how they did on this Saturday, but it was a really great kickoff to the beginning of the season. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. I would note that with the Storm's home opener, I had the pleasure of dropping the puck, and they won. I didn't drop the puck the next day, and they didn't win. Just saying. Just saying. I better watch out. I might get a regular job of going out and dropping the puck every time. It was a pleasure to be able to do that and help kick off the Storm. And Councillor Clayton, I think you're right. It was a really electric energy at Revolution Place that day. It was excellent to see. I'll just report on a couple of things. First, I had the opportunity to bring greetings to the Western Canadian Cemetery Association Conference that was held here in Grande Prairie. One of our very own, Mr. Daryl Reimer from our Parks Department and Cemetery area, was elected as president of the association. Councillor Friesen was a guest speaker, I believe, as well. But it was great to welcome professionals in this field to Grande Prairie. I also, the next day, on Thursday the 13th, had an opportunity to head down to Calgary as part of my AUMA responsibilities. I represent AUMA and urban municipalities on the Power and Natural Gas Consumers Panel. This was the first meeting of the panel after it was sort of changed through legislation and the public agency review that the province had gone through. The panel is a public body that works with the utilities consumer advocate. So it's going to be an interesting world of learning. And one thing that's relatively new is the utilities consumer advocate is taking on a mandate around education and mediation with respect to water utilities. And so obviously relevant to our own utility here. But it was a pleasure to do that on behalf of AUMA and have had a chance to connect with Aquaterra to encourage them to be involved as that develops. I also had the opportunity to make a bit of a proclamation and officially unveil the signage for Veterans Way that Council approved previously. It was great to see the Royal Canadian Legion get that recognition along with their first responders event that they hope to make an annual event that I think Councillor Minhas attended on Council's behalf later on that evening. I also had the opportunity, now where is it here? I also had the opportunity the following week to attend and bring greetings on behalf of Council to the Canadian Institute of Foresters National Conference that was hosted here in Grande Prairie. This conference had over 300 attendees, all professional foresters from across North America, and I think actually a few from abroad as well. Great to see them obviously in, and to remind us all of the importance of the forestry industry to our region, but also the importance of the forestry industry across the country that continues. And then I'll also report on the opportunity that I had to attend an anti-racism consultation with Minister David Engen. The Education Minister has taken on a mandate to develop anti-racism approach across the province, and it was a pleasure to be able to meet with him and other community leaders at the Grande Prairie Museum as he did his Grande Prairie stop on his consultation tour of the province. And with that, I have nothing else to report, but I will make a small recognition that this is our last City Council meeting for City Manager Bob. And so, Bob, I want to say on behalf of Council and the organization and the community, thank you very much for your service to Grande Prairie. We've appreciated working with you. I speak on behalf of all of Council when I say that. I'll say that I personally have appreciated working with you. And we're sorry to see you go. But Medicine Hat's gain, obviously. The advantage to this is, and this is in comparison to all the rest of Council, I still get to see mid-sized city mayors and city managers meetings, and I will absolutely still be picking your brain there. But on behalf of our community, our organization, and Council, thank you very much for your service. Much appreciated.
Perhaps I was going to note that this might be the shortest meeting in City Council history, but the flu has given me a weak voice, though, so that I will not drone on. But I would like to take Mayor Given and members of Council and the management team that's here this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to serve this community. However short, it has been a very, very meaningful time for me. I think we have covered some interesting ground together. And I have had an opportunity to be a part of Council in a way that is not always embraced of city managers by Council. I always felt like I was part of this team as well. And I had the privilege of being part of an extraordinary management team and an extraordinary team of city employees that are dedicated to public service. It has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Nicolay. And with that, we'll call our meeting adjourned. Thank you.